On this episode, we discuss self-tapes. Joining us is Will Austin, an actor, videographer, and director.
We could think of no one better to discuss everything about self-tapes with than Will, as he is the owner of Self-TapeUK, a bespoke self-tape and showreel production company based in London. Hello, Will.
Hello. How you doing?
Hello. Not bad. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. It's been a quite a busy day today. So,
fantastic.
Nice to be jumping on with you guys. Yeah, cool.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on and offering to share your knowledge for this episode of The Essentials, where we'll be talking about self-tapes, which is, you know, the term that maybe 10 years or so wasn't even a thing and is now something that we believe that every actor should know about. So being the owner and founder of Self-TapeUK, we thought of no one better to talk to you about self-tapes.
Thank you. No, thank you for getting in touch and asking me to do this. It's funny to say about 10 years ago, it wasn't really a thing. I mean, I went to Mountain View. I trained as an actor and went to Mountain View, and I graduated about 8 years ago. I graduated in 2012. And it wasn't really a thing then. I don't remember at drama school, I could be wrong, but I don't really remember being asked to sort of do anything like this or learn about what we'll be going into as actors when we're kind of out in the industry and having to do these tapes. And it wasn't as big of a thing as it is now, to the point where almost embarrassingly, I didn't really know what a self-tape was.
Yeah.
Bad,
well, that is actually the first question we'd like to ask you.
Yeah.
If you can give us your dictionary definition of what is a self-tape.
I think it almost, explains itself. It's putting yourself on tape so that people can see you doing whatever you do, whether that's, I think it can cover a multitude of things, but usually it's acting or, singing to camera, so that someone elsewhere can see you doing that. So it's sort of a way of getting you seen. And it used to be more about getting you seen when you couldn't be in the room. If it was something in America or something, if the casting office was in a place where you couldn't get to, it would be a self-tape. Whereas now the self-taping process almost seems to be a preliminary round, like a first round before the next sort of main round where you might get in the room or meeting somebody. So yeah, essentially, with what I do, it's mainly putting actors on tape for a casting that's come through from an agent or something like that. I mean, I was just taping with someone now about an hour ago, and they were actually putting themselves on tape to submit themselves to agents to try and get an agent. So people put themselves on tape off their own backs, I suppose, and trying to put stuff out there for people to see what they can do. So it's there's loads of different versions of self-taping, but ultimately, I think mainly it's so that you can audition without being in the room with that casting director or director or whoever.
That's really interesting. I didn't know actors did that to send to agents.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually for an agent, it's quite a good thing, because what are the agents going to be putting their actors up in front of? Tape, right? They're going to be getting their actors to tape. So if an agent can see someone taping, doing that really well and doing a good job, it's kind of how they're going to present themselves during those auditions and during those tapes. So you get a good feeling of
the actual skill of making one, isn't it?
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Given that you didn't know what a self-tape was then 8 years ago, when did you start Self-TapeUK and how did you go about growing the business?
I get asked this question quite a lot, actually, and it's almost evolved in itself to the point where, looking back, it's hard to know when a start point was. But from what I remember, I think I just kind of had a slightly better camera than maybe a few of my mates and stuff when we sort of, graduated Mount View. And also when I did some bar work at Her Majesty's Theatre for a while. And I just sort of, you're working with lots of actors at that point. And so as soon as someone finds out, you've got a camera. Yeah, I got a camera. Can you put me on tape? Can you help me out with this self-tape? Can you do this, that, and the other? So it just sort of developed from having this DSLR that then looked better than at least at the time than on the phone. So then it just sort of developed from that. And I think I don't know who it was now, maybe even someone said, look, there could be a business in this. I was like, I don't really know about that. But yeah, just sort of started by putting mates on tape for their auditions and myself when something came up. And then, like with any business, you just kind of go, well, what happens if I charge like 10 quid for this? what happens? What happens if I
Yeah.
just start? And it just sort of gradually built itself up to the point where it was getting busier and busier, and it was sort of, I wonder if I can sort of make the same money doing this as I did doing my bar job. And I remember, I think it might have been 2015. I think I was doing this bar job, and I just decided to go casual. And what going casual meant then was just, there's no hours. You just kind of let them know if you want to do a shift the following week or the week before. You let them know. And I just went casual, and I never booked in for another shift.
Hmm.
That was it. And I got called up about a month later saying, are you still going to want shifts? I just
Yeah.
went, I think I'll be okay. I think I'll be okay. Obviously,
Ah,
not really knowing if I was going to be okay, but feeling like things were sort of moving in the right direction, and just taking a bit of a leap to do something entirely off my own back, and try and do these tapes for actors, and try and do a good job and make them look as good and sound as good as I could at the
yeah.
time. I mean, a lot's moved on since then. If I was looking at my work now, if I was looking at my work, back then now, I'd be thinking, what were you doing? But it's like with anything, you look back and you realize quite significantly how far you've come.
Mm.
It really is an actor or creative's dream, isn't it, to be able to say no to a hospitality job, to be able to say that you
Oh yeah,
don't actually have to do it. There's some real power in that, isn't there?
absolutely. I mean, I end up working more now than ever. Like
Mm,
it's not as if, sometimes people think, oh, you work for yourself, you get to do whatever you want, you get to take as much time off as you want. But there's something in working for yourself where, at least for me, there's this constant fear of it might all end tomorrow. So I have to
mm.
take everything now, and you just end up kind of swamped by it sometimes. But it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, being busy, it's fantastic, and it's
Yeah,
nice that
sure.
your job outside of acting that you still do is working creatively and
Yeah,
watching and working with
yeah.
actors. It's
Yeah,
just
getting to work with actors, getting to meet new people, and I to be honest, mate, I learn so much from watching these actors,
yeah,
because I work with them so much and so often that it often takes me by surprise when it's me then who has to get in front of the camera and do
yeah,
my own self tape, and it reminds me, oh God, yeah, this is actually quite hard. Because when
Mm.
you're behind the camera working with people, and often people are they're so great, a lot of these actors, that what they're doing, you sort of take it for granted that it seems quite easy,
mm,
but it's not. It's really hard to just do that, and it's even harder when you have to do everything. So as actors now, we're getting asked to be a DOP, be a sound engineer, be a
mm.
cameraman, be everything, and then an actor on top of that. So at least what I'm trying to do, hopefully, is take away some of those difficult elements that not everyone wants to have to deal with, so that people can just come here and focus on the acting, which is what we should be good at, right? That's what we want to do. So
Yeah, totally. And you just mentioned there that you learn a lot from the people that you watch. Are there any specific things that come to mind, maybe from standout tapes that you recorded that you're like, wow,
yeah.
that was
Well,
amazing, or just in general?
this probably seems really obvious, but I think when you really know your lines, it just opens up everything, because
Mm,
you can just really play with it. You can just really play with everything, because you haven't got to be thinking. I always find that I tend to know my lines. I think, I'm at home, I've gone through Line Learner, I'm learning my lines, I know them 100%. And then you get in the room with someone, and it turns to about 80%, 70%. Like,
mm,
you find your mind sort of clutching for stuff. But there's a few actors that really do stand out for me, that come to see me, and they're one take wonders in a way. They have something down that's so well considered, well thought through, good choices. They bash it out, and it's like, and I'm always sort of almost amazed by it, because I'm certainly not like that a lot of the time. It takes me a little bit of time to kind of get the flow, with the tape, but some people just really come in, and I think it's just prep work that I think a lot of us actors know what we should do when it comes to prep, but sometimes we just don't go all the way, and it's like, we
mm.
think we know it enough. It's like, yeah, I know it enough. Let's do it, and then you come to doing it, and it's just not quite in your body, or you just haven't kind of thought through things quite enough. And I'm easily guilty of that. I mean, there's so many distractions nowadays, phones and Instagram and all these things, that you just end up, oh, I'll just have a little look at that, and you don't really put the work in the same way. And I look at some of these actors, and I think, yeah, you've really kind of just turned everything off and just dialed in on this, and gone all in. So yeah, I mean, learning the lines. not. I don't know. I think sometimes look at self tapes how you would look at going into an actual audition room, and I think how many people would bring a prop into a casting. Like, do you know what I mean? Would you bring something in?
No,
Hmm,
I
probably.
never
You know what I
have.
mean? If you're going into London, if you're going to central London for a casting with I don't know, someone, and would you bring a glass?
No.
No,
Right. So yeah,
absolutely
I
not.
think some people like bring crazy stuff. Sometimes it's like, what do we need? Do we need all these? Do we need all these things?
Do
I
you
mean,
need that banana in the scene?
yeah. I mean, again, I'm guilty of that, and putting sound effects on things, yeah, But sometimes it's worth trying things out just because you can, and we have that freedom now with self taping that kind of gives us that extra level of being able to do these things. But I don't know. Sometimes simple is key, and I'm always blown away more by the simplicity sometimes of these things rather than trying to sort of almost hide hide things with props and making things a bit more elaborate than maybe they need to be. So yeah, just simple, really. I mean, but that's also a good thing because it means that with simplicity you can keep things simple even on your end. If you need to do something from home and you've only got a phone and a little lamp or something, you can probably get away with it with enough kind of thought and consideration on how you're setting yourself up for that. It doesn't have to be quite as hard as I think it seems, but it's certainly not the easiest thing.
Yeah, it can be one of them things. I do it on self tapes. You tend to overthink it and then try and use
Yeah.
props things as a distraction. But Will, as you watch so many self tapes, thousands of self tapes, what sort of common mistakes do you see actors doing when you're watching them?
Oh well, it was. I mean, yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said with
Yeah.
not knowing the lines fully. But I mean that can be also. I don't. Sometimes I've been working with people the last few weeks now where it's been 16 pages,
Wow.
something like that, and it's in for the next day or something,
Oh
or
Uh,
no.
10 pages, and it's if you're looking at 16 pages and it's a film or something, and the film is 90 pages long, 100 pages, you're looking at maybe 12% of the script.
Yeah.
That's a tape.
it's crazy.
And it seems crazy, and I don't know. I don't know how much is being watched. Again, it's kind of all we can do is guess. Really, I don't know the true, ins and outs of what goes on when those tapes get sent off to who needs to see them. But I I don't know if I'm sending off a tape and it's running at 9 minutes long. Like, who's watching that? I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they are. But I don't know. I'm to the point where I think sometimes if there's a tape and someone's doing three scenes and there's one scene that really stands out and they smash it, but it might not be the scene, it might not be the first scene in terms of chronological order. I'm
Yeah.
tempted just to go, look, put the middle scene first, like make them watch that first because it's great, and then just have those other two scenes come afterwards because they might not even get that far. So
Yeah.
I yeah, that's another little tip. I think I would say that's a little tip that to think about. If there's a scene that kind of stands out for you or comes easier, and you smash it, well, if it's number three, put it first. It doesn't matter. Like, who does it matter? I don't know. Again, I think we're all sort of learning, right, and figuring these things out as we go. I'm not here to kind of say that I know exactly how things should be done, but I know a few actors who do that, and they usually end up doing quite well. And whether it's got anything to do with that, I don't know. It could just be a coincidence. But sometimes work out what the strongest scene is for you, and then put that one first.
Yeah.
So when they click on it, it's the first thing they see.
Yeah, well, it might play in your favour as if most people have sort of followed that order because like
Yeah,
a lot of good British actors, you want to do exactly as you're told and
oh,
send
we
things
do,
exactly.
we do, and yeah, we do. And it's sort of now almost every tape comes with an instruction manual of how to do it.
Yeah,
Please make it landscape. Please make it top of the head to the chest. Please make it this, that, and the other. And actually, I'd say that would be I would say that's a common mistake sometimes. And this is going to sound a little bit. I mean, I don't know who's going to hear this, but I think sometimes dare to don't be worried about daring to be a little bit more outside the box, or if you feel like that scene needs a little bit more intensity to it, and you want to come in a little closer on that, then I wouldn't be restricted by sort of someone. Just,
totally. Because
just make
if you're the right actor, they're
yeah.
not going to be like, well, we're not going to give you the part because you filmed it in a close up and we wanted a mid
Oh,
shot.
can,
Like, they're
can you
not going to not give you the part.
exactly? Can you imagine? Can you imagine putting like scene 3 first, and you smash it, and they go, well, we love this guy, but he did put
He put scene
Right.
3 first.
scene, he put the third scene first. It's an absolute no from us. It's never going to happen. And I think sometimes we just have to logically think that through as actors. We can be so, like say, bound by the rules that we don't shift from them. And I think sometimes if you know that there's a scene that is going to make you stand out, put it first.
Yeah.
Even if
I
they
like
say
that.
even if they say not to. Do you know what? Sometimes this is going to sound bad as well. If they say put the slate first, I mean, I've been tempted to just put it at the end anyway. Like I've conveniently forgotten to do it at the beginning. Because
you spoke about this, right? Like it's about, you want to see the character first.
I always like to think that that's I would agree with that. I would always prefer that. And then at the end, just go, here's my slate. This is what I look like standing up. You know,
Yeah.
at the end. I mean, so at least the first thing they see from you is this character that they're hoping to cast. I don't know. I mean, again, it's all subjective, and everyone's going to have their own opinion. But I think that's fine. I think it's okay to sort of think outside the box a bit, but also think logically like that. I always try and tell myself those kind of things where when you start to have those doubts, go, yeah, but if they really like me, would they not cast me because I didn't do a full body slate or something? You know what I mean? Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I think about it a lot of the time. It's just about if you don't. It's not that you don't care, but if you've got that sort of fuck it attitude,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
you just go and you be bold, you're far more likely to give a performance that's interesting.
definitely. Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Mm.
Yeah, I think again, any of those mistakes. I mean, common mistakes. I'm trying to think now, just off the back of my head. I haven't really thought this through, but just turning up with maybe something that just doesn't, the outfit, just the costume. I don't think we need to go into full costume sometimes for these things. I think
Mm.
I'm very tempted just to kind of go in a black t-shirt or just something that gives a sense of the character. But people wearing a fedora, like all these crazy with a feather sticking out of it, and I don't know. I actually don't know. I guess for
Yeah.
some people it works really well because they really pull it off. But for me, I just know that black t-shirt or grey t-shirt, something fairly clean, fairly simple, just easier. It just takes away that self-doubt for me, thinking, have I got the costume right? Have I got this right? But if you just give them something basic, I don't know, what do you guys tend to do?
Yeah, I mean, I do the same black t-shirt because you don't want to give them a reason to not see if you're wearing a t-shirt that Romeo was wearing when DiCaprio did Romeo and Juliet, something
Yeah.
like that. You wouldn't do that, would you? So
Some
yeah, I
people would.
do.
That's
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
yeah,
their personality, I suppose. So if it
yeah,
works
yeah.
for them,
I mean, again, it's I think variety is key. I think if someone got tapes through and every single person just had a black t-shirt, I don't know.
boring.
Maybe that would be dull. So maybe we should aim for the opposite. Again, it's sort of, I think whatever strikes your fancy on the day. Like every tape is gonna be different in terms of what the breakdown is, what you're asked to do for it, what the character's like. So there's nothing set in stone on a tape by tape basis. It can definitely be sort of how you feel about that character and that tape. Maybe even that casting director. Maybe that they like certain things. So you kind of,
We'd all like to know that, wouldn't we? We'd all like to know what do you
wouldn't like
want?
to know.
It's like that scene in The Notebook, isn't it? It's just, what do you want? Tell me.
Well, we always hear that they want us to get the job.
Yeah. Oh,
We want to solve their problem, which is casting, which
yeah.
Yeah.
is casting this role. Well, who knows? But yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, do you guys quite like the fact that that tapes are more prevalent than ever, and you get to sort of do them from home, and you get more chances at it. You get to go again and again, or is that what do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I enjoy the creative freedom of it, and I enjoy the working with a friend on it, or I enjoy that the process where it isn't just a one crack at it kind of thing. But then I always love being able to meet people and talk to people in a room with someone.
Yeah.
I seem to reciprocate better in those scenarios, but if it's part and parcel of the industry, if it's not necessarily your cup of tea, you got to get better at it, right? Otherwise you get left behind.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. We do have to start getting good at these tapes, I think, because I mean, I hear so much about how great these tapes look coming out of America and LA, and they're on it. They're on it. They're on it.
They
Yeah,
speak about American actors with learning lines as well and things like that. I know there's always the comparisons between American and British actors and the American and British performing industries. But one thing I think, from what people tell me, I've not encountered many situations with American actors myself, but that sort of attitude of, well, I know there are 10,000 people, other Americans, that will learn all the lines, so I need to know the lines better. I need to do this better.
yeah.
And while that's quite relentless, it is that winner's attitude, isn't it? It's what, if you do it, I think we had a conversation with Sydney Aldridge, the casting director, and she brought up that sort of shark-like attitude. I think it was. I don't know if I've misquoted there, but that idea of, yes, you might get sent a lot of lines, but we know that someone will learn them all, and
Somebody
you've
will. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to be at the front of that line, haven't you? In terms of recording self-tape, I know you obviously want both to be really good, but do you think there's a preference as to whether or not to get the image perfect or the sound perfect?
Um, well, do you know, I mean, I'd say that the sound is always the thing that gets a little neglected a lot of the time.
Mm.
I think it's very easy to kind of on your phone or whatever you're doing. It's easy to know if you've got a good image. I think you can see it right then and there. But sound is a bit of a different sort of scale. It takes a sort of a certain ear, and you have to sort of like listen back. And you go, is that good enough or not? But I think with video, right? I mean, with other work that I do, it's very clear to me that okay, I've got the image, I've nailed it. That's fine. Like I know that that's working. But then sound, all sorts of things to be aware of. Like does someone shout halfway through the scene? Is that going to spike your audio? Do you have to compensate for that by running a sort of? I always run a backup track, which is set to about minus 10 decibels compared to the main track, so that if someone yells, we just switch over to that second track, and we haven't got a spike. But yet most of the audio is on the right level when they're just talking. So things like that to consider. So yeah, I'd say they're both equally important. And what good sound can do is if you've got your sound in the right place with a microphone that's closer to the actor, whether that's a boom microphone over the top or if you're wearing a lav mic, hopefully with that closer proximity with that mic, you get a much more intimate sound, a bit like what you're used to watching on TV. The audio is crisp and clear, and it's like you're right there. But what actors tend to do when they're taping at home or using their phone or something without any external audio is that the reader is going to be more apparent in that tape than sometimes the actor, because the actor's a couple of meters back from the phone, whereas that reader is right there next to it reading in those other lines. So the actor can often sound like very distant, and I think when anything's like distant, you're almost wanting to kind of like lean forward into that sound, like, well, I can't really like hear you, or at least I don't feel quite as connected to that audio. So I'm tempted to say that audio is really important. I don't know if it's more important because, right, as long as we can see you and we can hear you, we get a good idea. If we couldn't see you at all, that's just like a voiceover audition.
Yeah.
So I'd say that I'd say the image is going to be more important because we get to see you and we're going to hear you regardless. But if you can top it up with some good audio, then you're going to be like miles above what a lot of people are doing with their tapes, because they're often just using on camera audio or just whatever comes out of the phone. So there's definitely a few things to sort of look into when it comes to audio equipment that you can get, and hopefully nothing too expensive. You can get a few things that just help bring that up to the right levels. I mean, the microphones that I use here for tapes are not actually what I'd recommend anyone going out and buying for tapes. It's because I do this as a business, and I also use these same microphones for other work that I do, so short films and showreels and all these other things. So I probably wouldn't suggest buying like a Sennheiser 416, which is one of the microphones that I use, which is getting close to like £1,000 for one microphone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to recommend that because it's silly really to do that for a tape or for an audition. But there are definitely things that you can buy that are quite similar to that. That may mean you have to spend 150, maybe £200, but audio equipment hopefully will last for years and years and years. So once you've got it, you've got something that you can kind of reliably have with you every single time.
Yeah, my agent says to me, it's ideal if you've got a room, if you always have your self-tape set up ready, so you don't have to go in there and worry about it. The lighting's the same,
Yeah.
the angles are the same. So,
Well, that's the
how,
thing. I mean, a lot of people. I hear so many people recommending, shoot in daylight. I actually completely disagree. I mean, I have a big open window that brings in a lot of daylight for my kind of studio for tapes, but often I'll close the blind and light it all, you know, artificially with sort of daylight bulbs and things that replicate daylight. But you can get so many fluctuations in the light from daylight. If the cloud is a bit less thick at one point in the middle of that audition, or the sun comes out, or something changes, it just completely it messes everything up. Especially when you're working with things like a mirrorless camera or DSLR, or like a cinema camera, where most of the settings are dialed in for a certain lighting condition. So if it changes throughout, it's not like a phone that's going to sort of adapt and change its exposure and ISO settings like an automatic camera will. It's going to be fixed so that if the sun comes out, everything just blows out and you haven't got a tape anymore. So yeah, I always tape. I never used natural light, really, actually.
Yeah, I've been to your setup actually. It's fantastic, I have to say.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
It comes out really clear. How important do you think practicing self-taping is?
I mean, I think it's important, and I noticed that. I noticed that when I come to do my own tapes. You know,
Mm.
I probably for every 20 tapes that I'm doing with other people, I'm doing one for myself, maybe if I'm lucky. So it can start to feel like really easy, and then you get to do your tape, and I'm just not familiar with being in front of the camera again. So I think practicing it is really good, and I should definitely be doing more myself, because even being around it at the capacity that, or at the to the extent that I do it, it isn't even enough. You know, even being around it with other actors is not enough. You have to almost put yourself in that position and be in front of the camera. I don't know how. I don't see how. Yeah, I don't think practicing it can be a bad thing. So that when you get that tape that, you know, almost means everything to you, you can do a good job. I think it's like anything. You know, just practice as much as you can, as much as I don't know, as much as you
Yeah,
can.
I completely agree. Yeah.
It's hard though. I actually find it really hard to motivate myself to do things like that unless I've got. It sounds bad, but unless I've got a sort of an end result to sort of aim for.
Yeah.
That is for me booking the job. If I'm just taping willy nilly off my own back and I think I'll tape that duologue or whatever. I never really kind of have the same motivation to get around and do it. It's terrible.
Yeah, I just get that sort of guilt, and I visualize other actors that get up at the crack of dawn to do yoga and then read through the Stanislavski books and do all this, that, and the rest. I'm like, oh my god, I
I
just
don't know who are these people. You know.
they're not friends of mine. No, I'm a perfectly normal individual. Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, okay, all right. Now you're making me feel bad now because I don't
Right,
I don't do that either.
we'll swiftly move on.
Yeah.
How many takes do you think you should do when you're recording a self tape? You spoke earlier about these incredible people that can come in and do it in one go. What are your thoughts on that?
The people who come in and nail it, and then they go, "Should we just do one for luck?" It's like, okay.
Oh.
Do you know what? There's no set. I don't think there's any set number of takes. I'd always, yeah. I hear people say that it's maybe good to try and be as prepared as you would be for when you're going to be in the room, knowing that if you're up against, you know, if you're face to face with the cast and director, what you're going to get, like 2 or 3 if you're lucky, maybe. I don't know. That's kind of my experience doing things. You get a couple of goes. So why not the same for tapes, right? In an ideal world, we should be as prepared to put something down in the same way. I mean, I'm not like that. Just knowing that I can go again makes me mess up. It's like, yeah, we'll go again. Yeah, we'll just go again. I mean, it can be one of the terrible things about self-taping, actually, the fact that we can watch ourselves back, which is awful, and go again.
Yeah.
Because sometimes what happens to people is if you watch yourself back, at least for me, you then become suddenly so self-aware of how you look doing that thing.
That one line or that one time where you raise your eyebrow on that, and you're always focused on that one eyebrow raised on that one line rather than. And it's interesting you mentioned that the pressure almost, as you say there, is like, you know, I could just do it again. Sometimes the pressure of being in a room with a casting director brings out the best in you. I hadn't thought about it that way, actually.
You know what's worse for me is that if you send off a self-tape, you're basically saying, this is as good as I was ever going to get it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you could have gone again. So whatever tape you send, and it's worse when I send it to my agent, because I think, oh God, I hope this is me saying it's as good as I'm going to get at this tape. And if I think I could have done better, I would have gone again, right? So you're kind of putting it all on the line. And I'm always a bit like, wow, okay, I wonder if that's enough. But I think that's the difficult thing, that you are basically saying this is this is it, guys. This is as good as I was going to get it, because I could have had another stab at it, do you know? Which is hard, I think. But I don't know. I think I mean, I'm terrible, man. Sometimes it's like many takes, and sometimes you just feel it. You just feel it, and I'll often actually, funny enough, I work with actors. It happened today where we did a take, talked about it a little bit, tried to find some nuances, and go again and go again and go again, and we watched the first take back and the last take, and it was clearly the first take. It just felt much more real, much more alive. There was more variance in the kind of the way things were flowing. It just felt better. It just felt more like a conversation. And so sometimes maybe going again is sort of our enemy, even if we don't know it. It's not we get into a rhythm. Yeah. I don't know. There's no answer for that. I mean, sometimes just keep going until you get it, until you get the words right.
Yeah.
It can just be that. And I always find tapes super hard when it's kind of procedural work and lines that often don't mean much to you. They're just sort of information. You're just giving information so the scene can move along. Not like there's not direct sort of, how are you today? Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. How are you? Oh, I'm not feeling too good. Like stuff that kind of makes sense in how it flows. Sometimes it can just be a monologue or something of just jargon or stuff that we're not used to saying on a day-to-day basis, and that I think is quite hard as well. I always find that difficult.
That just brought up a sort of question in my mind to possibly ask you in terms of, when you're not necessarily the ones where you've got the big old monologues, but when you get self-tapes for those sort of expositional parts, when you go out for soaps or whatever, and you're the person that interacts with the main character in whatever show you're in, and you are mainly there for exposition, you're mainly there to set the scene, the bit parts. How do you recommend actors approach those lines where, no one really cares about your character, but you're going up for an acting job that you want to get? How do you approach those lines? How do you approach those tapes? Yeah.
Those are actually the most devastating when you don't get them, because you sometimes think, well, if I can't get Policeman 2, what am I going to get?
Yeah.
What is out there for me if I can't? Do you know what? It's funny. Again, I don't know who's listening to this, but I'll say it anyway. Went up for. I've been telling this story too often. I think it's obviously got to be. But I went up for Man in Balaclava. Just take a moment to think what that means. Obviously, I didn't wear a balaclava for the thing.
That's why you didn't get it, Will. That's why you didn't get it.
I don't think so. But part of me thinks when you don't get Man in Balaclava, to start asking yourself quite a few serious questions, don't you? What do you do if you don't get Man in Balaclava? How are you going to get that role opposite David Tennant?
Oh God, it sounds like such a good actor's memoir title, that Man in Balaclava.
I might have to. Yeah, that's great. Actually, if I have anything worth telling in the future, maybe I'll call my memoirs that on my book, Man in Balaclava. How it all turned out okay in the end.
I'd read that.
That was a low point. I'll tell you that. It's still. I'm living with it every day. What was the question? No, about these procedural lines. I think just try not to draw too much attention to it. Just kind of, I think any of these roles, we have to kind of think, whether you're a policeman or a paramedic or just someone coming in giving some information, it's probably something you do every day. This character does every day. So we just have to make it very sort of everyday, I think.
Yeah.
Very sort of
familiarity of it.
Yeah, try and find a way of making that as familiar to you as possible. And if there's difficult words, I think it's just about going over them and over them and over them until you can just sort of get them, say them while doing the washing up or while doing another activity. So your brain isn't even really thinking about those words. It's just coming out with the sounds. And so then when you come to actually tape it, it just rolls off the tongue, and you can actually act it as well, because it's just information. You can just kind of do what you want with it. It's just a bit like learning those lines as well as you can. I don't know. I think a lot of people make the mistake, and I think I'm guilty of that too, of almost trying to do too much with that line. Trying to do too much with it because you want to be noticed.
Yeah.
Pick me.
I'd say that.
Pick me. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm an expert at that either, but I think in hindsight, when I look back and I see other actors doing the same thing, there's a lot to be said for just doing less sometimes. Doing less. I always hate that as a note, because it just seems so sort of standard and vague and just like, do less. What does that even mean? But sometimes it just is about making it familiar. which will, I think, make you do less.
Yeah, I was completely agree. I've fallen into the trap before where you're trying to make them two lines into something they're not, and you're really just asking someone in a restaurant if they want a drink,
Yeah,
for something that isn't there.
yeah.
Uh,
I'm trying to put all this other stuff on it, and it's just like, no, honestly, no one cares.
yeah, yeah, you're just moving the story along to get to David Tennant.
Yes, all we want to see is Tennant. Don't
Yeah,
give me that guy behind the bar. Just, I always feel
balaclava
pretty bad
hat.
for, I always feel pretty bad for actors when it's like they've clearly got quite a few lines, but it's just of their back.
Mm.
And I'm like, yeah, but you would have auditioned for that, and you would have like gone, yeah, that would been great, like a little monologue opposite that actor, and then it's just on. It's literally all of it is on the other person. I always sit there and think, oh man, you thought that was going to be for your showreel, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're
Oh
out.
God,
Yeah.
it's just like that bit in Monsters Inc., isn't it, where Mike Wazowski's really excited about being on the advert for Monsters Incorporated, and it's just not even his head in
This
the
happens,
thing.
this happens so many times, I tell you. Yeah.
Mm.
So I would actually approach every self-tape like that, like going, I'm not going to be seen anyway.
Mm.
And then see if
Mm.
that changes it. See if that changes how you play it. Just like,
Mm.
I'm not going to be seen anyway, so whatever.
I
And then
love it.
chances are you will be seen. So it's fun. Then you know, once you get it,
Then it's only a win.
it's only going to be a win. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Takes the
You've
top.
mentioned a few of them already as we've been talking, but if you could start, what are the benefits of actors coming and using a service like yours over recording their own tape at home?
I mean, the main benefit I think is that it just takes away every single other aspect about self-taping that we're asked to do, because I'll cover everything. I mean, it will all be done. It will be packaged nicely, sent off to you just to pass on to your agent or casting director, whoever needs it, easily, so that all you actually have to do is come in and do the acting. So I will read in with you. I will, sort out the sound, make sure everything's working, make sure we'll test the sound, we'll test levels, we'll work out what's happening. Lighting, of course, figure out how best to light. I mean, actually, when was the last time you came into tape? When did you come in for that time? Was it quite a while ago?
Oh, I get a couple of years ago now, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I've actually moved things on quite a lot now. I've changed around a lot, and I use my lights in a different way. There's a lot of bouncing lights around rather than sort of shining light directly on people.
Okay.
Much
Oh,
softer, much nicer to sort of bounce light and find a way of pulling an actor away from the background by maybe lighting the background a little bit differently, or lighting the hair at the back rather than on the face, and just finding these little things that make stuff look a bit more cinematic. So yeah, figuring out how to light people, and often my white balance and my color balance and all these different things will be a bit different depending on each actor, whether someone's a bit got different skin tones, or what their hair color's like. It can just change the way I sort of color certain things as well, and make things look. So for each person, everything's a little bit different. It's not like I just turn on the lights and it's the same for everyone. I do now kind of change things around, so it's very bespoke in terms of how it looks. What else? So we've got the visuals, we've got the audio, we've got the reading, we've got the helping you choose your takes, and sort of it. I mean, I do so many of these, and try and help actors, a bit of direction, pull out things that they might not have thought about, or just try and give them a different way of me reading it off camera to help with something, or help the pace, or just try and figure out how to make that tape as good as it can be. So it's not just you with your, I don't know, brother or your dad, or whoever you've got at that moment to tape with, who might not be looking at the script in the same way that I am. And I'll often ask people to send me that script like a day before, if they can, because I often read off an iPad, because it means that there's less rustling noise or any paper, on the other side of the camera, so we don't hear that happening either. So I'll always ask if it's possible. It's not always possible because of confidentiality and all these other things, but if you can, then send me it beforehand, so that I can get familiar with it and think about it a little bit, at least before you get here. But yeah, all of that, the editing, the color grading, the syncing up with the sound that we capture to the video, and then putting it all together in a tape, and doing that however you need it, because sometimes it needs to be one video. Sometimes instructions say that it needs to be scene 1, scene 2, and then a slate all individually as separate videos. So then I'll do it like that for you. I'll put a title on there if you need it, with a name. Basically, however you need your tape doing, I'll sort of do it if I can. So it's very sort of, I try and make it as bespoke and sort of as personal as possible. If somebody just wants to come and tape, do one take, and go, that's it, I'm out. Send it over to me, then that's also fine. But if people need a bit more help, then it's also that as well.
Amazing. Well, going back to something you mentioned earlier about having actors come in with 9-minute scenes and things like
Yeah.
that. I've heard casting directors talk about knowing whether or not to recall someone based on the first 10 seconds, whether it's their look or whatever. What are your views on that?
Just look really good. Just look
Just be really good.
like Henry Cavill on a good day.
Oh God.
I know, right? I know.
It's just knowing that I'm so far away from that.
Don't be silly. I've seen you both.
I'll just wear the balaclava every time.
Maybe that's what they were trying to tell me.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, it is that thing though, isn't it? That so much of it seems to be a look within the first 10 seconds if you look right for the part. So I suppose we could take the pressure off ourselves.
I've heard that I hear the same thing, and you start to wonder: is that just like something that just like a buzzword, just like something that goes around? They're only going to watch the first 10 seconds. You have to. I mean, I try and listen to as many podcasts as I can with casting directors and other things, so you get a bit of an insight as to sort of what's happening at the minute and how they feel about certain things, and whether they want titles, whether they don't, whether they just want to jump straight in. Or, I mean, I try and keep as up to date as I can with what people are saying. You know, in the real life context of what this is all about, and I don't know. I think you do have to obviously make an impression, or you know, but then it kind of goes against what we were talking about with those procedural roles, because if you go in with that in mind, you feel like, oh bloody hell, I need to sort of like come all in, like go crazy and do something that they're never going to forget. So it's hard to find that balance, I think. I don't know. I think a lot of it is down to your look and how you sound, and probably like they'll just know within 10 seconds whether you kind of suit that. I'm not sure what this whole thing about 9-minute self-tapes is. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like a lot, but when it does happen, I just think there's a lot to get through. What if they're getting sort of 30 people for that tape, and the tapes are genuinely 10 minutes long? That's 300 minutes of watching people's tapes. Can we honestly think? Do we honestly think that they are spending like that time? Maybe they are. Maybe they. Maybe for big projects they really are watching it all to the end. But
yeah, be surprised though, wouldn't you? You'd think maybe on a fourth round or something, you'd maybe.
I'd be surprised. I think what you're going to do, you're going to watch like a minute and a half and have a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe the 9-minute tape, maybe it's just like, if someone's really got that thing that they're looking for, then great. Now we can watch scene 2 and scene 3 and see how they tackle those different emotional states.
Yeah, and almost take out future rounds that they might have called them in for.
Right. Let's just get everyone to do it though anyway, just in case, you know, they're the right person and we want to watch those other 2 takes or those other, I don't know. Again, it's sort of speculation, isn't it? We're sort of trying to guess what's going on once those tapes have been sent. But there are a few regulars that I do work with on a fairly consistent basis that it's a shock to me if they get anything less than about 10 pages.
Yeah.
And it's almost funny. Like they'll come in and go, oh, such an easy one today. It's only 7. Only 7 pages.
Yeah.
You know how many lines Man in Balaclava had? It had 1.
Do you know what was it?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say it though. Everything's.
I think we should go for it.
It was 5 words. It's 5 words. It's 5 words. It's like da 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 da. That's it. I better not say what it was, just in case.
Just in case we link back to that individual. That's quite incredible. It was one of those things with the really long scripts as well, where say you're working that 9-to-5 job that you need to pay the rent, and then you've got a day to do the tape, and you've got 10 pages, and you just, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if it's being defeatist, but the attitude I might sometimes feel about that is, well, I know I'm not going to be able to give my best performance now because I've got these 3 shifts working here and there, and it's going to be about trying to remember the lines and give my best acting performance. And I'm not sure if, you've got all these actors that, sometimes they are just incredible at learning lines, but sometimes they're fortunate enough to not have to work that job. And, but those are the unfair parts of this industry, and you've got to get on with it, haven't you? But it's just, I don't know how many people that they might be neglecting, that, you know, we talk about in this industry trying to represent people that aren't just middle class and above, and a lot of people from, you know, the working class or similar sort of financial positions, they can't just take a day off work to learn lines.
Yeah.
And the amount of actors from those positions that maybe aren't getting the roles because they're like, oh, well, they're clearly trying to remember their lines. But actually,
Yeah.
you know, if you'd have given them one extra day, they'd have blown you away.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure why things come in at 10 o'clock in the morning and it has to be in for 4 p.m. the same day. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot, isn't it? And again, I think we're expected to sort of drop everything to sort of do it, because do you know what? And because we will, and because enough people will,
Exactly.
and there'll be enough people who excel at learning lines like that. Because there's also the line learning, I find, is easier when you've been regularly doing it. So if you're getting, you know, 3 or 4 tapes a week, you know, you're probably in a few weeks going to get quite good at learning lines. It's
It's
just
like
like
any muscle, isn't it?
muscle memory, like training anything. It just kind of it gets easier the more you do. So that there is something to be said for sort of maybe even, you know, keeping on with, you know, give yourself line learning exercises every day, maybe, just to kind of be ready for that when it does come up. But I find it hard to do stuff like that when I don't know if I'm going to get a tape for the next 6 months or something. You know, you could be,
Yeah.
right. So then you put all this work into being a good line learner, you never get to do it. And it's just, I think, yeah, we have to just sort of weigh up the pros and cons. And are we going to wait for that one big thing that's going to, you know, really matter, and then all that line learning practice paid off, or do we just kind of wait for the thing to come and then do our best?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit of, you know, bit of both, bit of kind of give and take. But yeah, it's really hard for people who have full on, you know, jobs to have to kind of keep down and tape at the same time and do these things, when it's such a lot of work, with such a lot of lines. I mean, again, I think the good thing about tapes is that if you're clever, you can find little tips and tricks and ways to sort of hide the lines, and glance down and have the pages with you, perhaps, without making it really obvious. Like if you're going into an audition room face to face, you can't hide the fact that you've got the script in your hand. But with a self tape, hey, maybe they never need to know, because you're just really good at sight reading, and you can kind of have that script off camera, and find a way to sort of cheat it, and just at least be familiar with the script, but maybe occasionally have to look down, and use that looking down in the way that you can kind of act through it. So don't just, like, you know, bring your head straight down to the page. Just try and, like, you know, be thoughtful about it. You know, try and, I don't know, do that sort of thing where you sort of look off to the side and then down. You just pick up the line and then look back up and finish it off. I don't know. I think
A dramatic look to the left to get the line.
yeah, like a little dramatic look, a pause for no reason whatsoever, and then finish off the line. Yeah, and maybe nobody will know. I mean, I do something for people sometimes where the iPad is generally big enough, and what we can do is sort of have the iPod on a stand, or I just hold it sort of at head level, and I'll be in front of it, and I'll kind of scroll with the actors like a human auto cue. So we'll do that as well sometimes, so that we're just kind of reading it on the page as it scrolls, and get the timing right, which is a lot easier to do than actually using an auto cue, because I can kind of scroll with you and read at the pace that you're going.
It's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah, it actually works really well. Yeah.
Being an actor yourself, what sort of effect has that had on your business in terms of the marketing, pricing, and filming? Because I know some self-taping companies have heard charging crazy prices and getting slated, and it must be a difficult thing. Like, you don't want to charge too little.
Yeah. What have you heard, mate? What have you heard?
It wasn't about you. Don't worry.
No. I mean, but some of them are. Yeah, I guess some of them are expensive, but it's like you know, I guess any business is allowed to charge whatever they want to charge. I think it's however you sort of value yourself, and I have no self-worth, mate. So that's generally where that sits. But no, on a serious note, it does change things, because as an actor myself, it's sort of, you always consider, okay, what would I be prepared to sort of pay for this service? That actually, I think a lot of it goes against being a good businessman, because, you know, I will I will often, is this going to go out to other actors? Because they might start taking advantage of me. But
Yeah.
I'll often, run over or go over time, and it's like, no, it's absolutely fine. Don't worry. Like I get really invested into making sure that tape is something someone's really happy with.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, I don't want them walking out and then me invoicing them an extra 80 quid because they would take an extra hour and a half or something. It's mental. So I have this thing where I try and cap tapes at about 2 hours, but you never have to book for more than an hour. And what I'll do is charge for that first hour. And then if you feel like you need it, each additional half an hour is just, I've changed it now. This is the new model that I run. It's sort of £15 extra for that extra half an hour if you want it. So if you're in the session, if you really want to keep going I'm not going to charge you 15 quid if you run over by 5 minutes, right? That's fine. If you want to kind of continue that session on, for me, the thought of like, okay, well, it's only £15. I really want to get this right. Let's do it. Rather than, going into the next hour and charging for the full hour just because you've run over a little bit. So I try and do these little 15 or like these 30-minute increments if you really want to keep going. But even then, I'm very I am quite relaxed. I probably should be better with being kind of more on my time and on schedule. But
That's just good marketing, isn't it? From a
well,
moral point of view. That's why,
yeah,
I'm not saying that you're intentionally being nice because people will then come back, but it's just a nice thing that actors will go, well, I know Will's not going to put pressure on me to get this right now. He's
no, do
on
you know
my
what?
side. Do you know what I mean?
Pressure's the worst thing. How can any of us?
Yeah.
How can any of us operate well under? I mean, I know some people who do, but really, when you put under pressure, I mean, if someone said to me, "Just so you know, you've only got 5 minutes left," I'd feel like, "Wow, I've got to. This is it then." And I know that happens on set, but this is sort of this should be a place where it's comfortable, relaxed. We want you to get, I want you to get the job. I want you to do this justice. If I can't put pressure on people for that. And what I'll try and do is I'll always ask someone. So if you were to book with me and I'd say, oh, how long do you think you need? Oh, I need about an hour. What I'll really do in my head is book out 2 hours in my head. So that I know that there's an extra hour if it's needed. So I won't book in the next person. So if you book in for 12 o'clock, I won't book in the next person until maybe, I don't know, 2:30.
Yeah.
There's plenty of time. But I know from hearing, from other people about other services, especially actually I've heard in America, they're very like, if you book for half an hour, you get your half an hour and then someone's in like, the next half an hour. It's like a turnaround thing. And I find like I can't do that. I feel like even for my own sort of sanity, I need to know that there's space and there's time and there's stuff for things to grow, because sometimes I'll even be the one to be like, no, I think you've got this. Let's go. I think we've got something else. Let's go again. And if I'm going to be doing that, if I'm going to be the one going, yeah, let's go again, it's going to take us into like the next hour or the next half an hour. I won't charge for that. That's my fault. That's my problem. I'm thinking I want you to go again. So that happens often too much, actually. Yeah. Not
Well, I'd love to round this whole thing off, Will, with just if you could briefly explain to us the process from an inquiry email to Self-Tape UK to receiving the finished product, and then anything else that you do offer actors at Self-Tape UK.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully people find me through any means. You got Google comes up. I think I don't know where. Hopefully first, mate. Hopefully first. Instagram. A little bit of Twitter. I'm not great. Not as good on social media as I could be. But yeah, find me, and then someone inquires. As I said, I think I asked them how long they think they might need. Some people actually don't know how long they need. I say, how long do you need? And they go, I only need half an hour. And I say, how long's the script? How many scenes you got to do? Oh, I've got to do about 5 scenes. It's like, it probably won't happen in half an hour. Because there's that sort of like, even if you're meeting someone for the first time, there's that sort of like meeting, saying hello, making someone feel comfortable, bit of chat, and then getting down to work. And by the time you put one scene down, it's like 1:30 or something. And if you start at 1:00, it's like half an hour. So I'll often have to kind of say, are you sure? Do you want me to book you a bit more time? So anyway, the book in, sort out time and kind of schedule, and then I'll send out a kind of confirmation email, which basically has what to expect from the session and sort of where to go, with a little map of sort of where I'm based, and making all that as easy as possible so that people are not going to get lost or trying to find out exactly where I am. But I'm pretty easy to find and very close to sort of public transport, so it's not an issue really. And then they'll turn up. We'll hopefully I've got the sides beforehand, but often we'll just have a little chat and talk about the script, anything that I need to know as a reader that might help sort of inform the whole scene, because sometimes actors have more context than I do. They've been given the full script to read, or they've been given the breakdown by the casting team, and that they know a bit more about that character than I do if I've just got the scene. So we'll just have a little chat. We'll often do a couple of line runs. I think it's really good just to kind of get the words out, especially when you're in a new place. Working with a new person that you've never worked with before, just to kind of get the words out, just helps relax everyone. So we kind of just read it through maybe once or twice, and then just start to work out how to light everything and start putting it down, and then just kind of go from there. It's totally up to the actor how they want that session to go as well. So if they want to watch playback after every tape, that's fine. I mean, that's fine. It does take more time to do that, but if you want to, then we can watch everything back and assess there. I mean, some actors would just rather not watch anything back and just go by how things feel, and sort of take my opinion as part of that decision process, and go along with that. It's completely dependent on what people want. And so we'll do the hour or the hour and a half or whatever it takes, and then choose which takes and tapes we want. I mean, this is probably sounding quite long-winded now, but because it's so sort of dependent on what somebody wants. They might want me to send a couple of takes of a scene, so that when they get home, they can kind of think about it with a fresh set of eyes after having maybe an hour or two off doing it, and then they can sit down and decide which tape they want. So I will always edit and send whatever people need, even if it doesn't get used in the end. I'll always color grade, sound edit everything, and send it over, so it's literally ready to go once they've made their decision. Or I can upload to Vimeo for people. I can send it over WeTransfer as a finished tape in and of itself, like a whole complete thing, and they can just forward that onto their agent or whoever needs it. And then usually I'll just, like, once everyone's happy with everything, I'll send an invoice afterwards, and depending on the time that's taken. But usually I'm quite generous with that as well, as we just discussed, and hopefully give people a good price, and just make sure they're happy, really. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like you say, you've been in, you've had a tape and done it with me. I guess probably quite a few things have changed since then, if it was a couple of years ago. But it's generally just coming in, putting something down, treating it a bit like an audition, but hopefully a much more relaxed version of an audition, because there's no pressure. And if we have to go again, we go again. And if you need a cup of coffee or a glass of water, then you get that as well, and whatever you need, really. Yeah.
It's really, really lovely. And you've also you shot Christian and I as one of our showreel scenes.
Oh yes, yeah. I love that scene. It was in the car park.
Yeah.
That turned out really well. I did another scene, actually. I haven't used that car park again for about 2 years, but we did another scene recently. I don't know if you've seen it on the Instagram. It's sort of about 4 posts ago, a guy and a girl sort of with the lights, and we did this thing where she's running through the car park, trying to get away from somebody getting chased, and it worked out really well. Yeah, but that's also something I do, and actually, the showreels are one of the probably taken over in terms of my time when it comes to the sort of ratio between showreels and self-tapes. I spend a lot of time now doing showreels, and self-taping sort of has to come as and when I'm available. I mean, so much of the time I'm off in South London or East London shooting showreels, and I just can't always be around for tapes. So it's sort of, I end up doing quite a few of them, maybe in the evening when I'm home from doing a shoot, or just on days when I know that I'm free, because my showreel bookings tend to be sort of in the calendar way in advance, and so I sort of know which days I can and can't do. I always feel bad though when I can't help actors out when someone gets in touch and goes, "Can you put me on the tape?" I always feel really bad, so I tend to recommend a few other places that I can kind of wholeheartedly recommend. There's another guy called Fraser Blacksland, who is excellent as well. He's sort of based more sort of towards, I think, Richmond, around there. He runs Mr. Self-Tape. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah, no,
He's also a very, very good guy. He's actually, and he's jumped in a couple of times being a scene partner on a couple of showreels. But yeah, I can highly recommend Fraser at Mr. Self-Tape. You've also got a couple of guys at a couple of who is it now? Yes, Ubi Self-Tapes. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No, I haven't heard
Haven't,
of that.
no.
Also, I'm not. I always forget where they're based. I'm terrible, but yeah, no, they're great. So if I can shout out to them as well, they are. If I'm not available, or if Fraser's not available, you got Ubi Self Tapes, who also do an excellent service from what I've heard. So yeah, it's worth checking them out as well. I mean, there are a number of us now um, doing a similar thing. But yeah, I think I started back in sort of 2014 really. So I think I've been doing it for quite a while now. I'm not sure if I was the first. I think I was one of the first. But yeah, no, there's a few good places now that you can go to, and I think we're all doing a very similar thing.
Brilliant. It's
Yeah,
been so lovely to chat to you, Will. So I'd just like to thank you again for giving us your time this evening and talking
yeah,
to us
no,
everything about your business and self-tapes in general. It's been a real pleasure. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast.
We hope you enjoyed it and learned something.
We look forward to having you back in the room very, very soon.